I'm Rebecca Abels. I come from a background of sexual abuse from my dad and 4 of my brothers. It was a terrible growing up. My parents moved us to Alaska, to the backwoods. It makes sense now, but there was so much abuse in our family that it was like, let's go somewhere we could be hidden. I grew up with 5 brothers. I'm the second to the youngest, and it's been a struggle my whole life. So growing up, we were Jehovah's Witness. My family was Jehovah's Witness, and even as a young girl, I remember thinking it was crazy. I remember thinking, what was the point? That how could this God exist and my life be so miserable, and what was the point? So I'm going through all this torture in life, and for what's the end result? So I remember thinking that really young, just because the teachings were so descriptive, and it freaked me out. But at the same time, my parents would leave and go off to work and leave us all at home, and we would be locked out of the house with a jug of water and a roll of toilet paper. And I remember feeling very unsafe because of this situation with my brothers. But all the while, I just always felt like there was somebody there. There was somebody watching me in a good way, not a creepy way, but just like there was a covering. There was someone there. And I think even back then I thought it could be God, but not really placing a name to it, just feeling like it was somebody who loved me and wanted to protect me. Fast forward to when I was 16. So the abuse happened since I was very young, up till I was 16. I left home. I decided that I just wanted to be brave enough to get away from it. I worked 3 jobs while I was in high school. Yeah, I did that till I graduated and got away for about 7 years. And then I was in a relationship, and I remember wanting to have a baby. That was my great desire, is that I just wanted to be a mom. I wanted to have a baby that I could love, that I could do it differently with. Then when I was 20, I had experienced a lot of pain. I went to the doctor and found out I had endometriosis. And when I came out of the surgery, the doctor he said, you won't be able to have kids. And I just remember feeling like all hope is lost, like a death inside of me, because it was the only thing I thought was worth living for, like it was the end goal for me. I knew some of God. So there was this understanding, but he still wasn't so real for me. So I wasn't clinging to him. I was clinging to this desire to be a mom. And so that day I just felt like that was gone. And looking back at it now, my fiance was not somebody that I felt like was going to help me through that. My relationship came to an end after 7 years, and I really had nowhere else to go. I went back to Alaska, back to my hometown. The people that had been in my life encouraging me about Jesus over the years, they were the ones that encouraged me to come back. So I did kind of have them as a support. Anyway, yeah, I came back and put my medical degree into use, and I was surrounded by people that loved the Lord. And that was, I would say, the beginning of really starting to believe that he was for me. And I was working at the clinic, and I went across the street to the restaurant I used to work at, and when I walked in, I saw my brother, who definitely was the worst of the perpetrators. I saw him, and it scared everything out of me. He was back out of prison. He had been in prison for 5 years for, at that time, there were like 6 accounts of rape against him. So I wasn't expecting to see him. Then a few months later, he attacked a bicyclist with a group of ladies that were cycling through Alaska, and she was trailing behind. He pretended to be stuck in the ditch off the road and lured her in, and by the grace of God, she was able to get away. And then our sergeant approached me and asked me if I'd be willing to testify against my brother. And right away I was like, oh no. I felt this courage well up in me, this anger, this maybe self-righteousness that I wanted to have justice. But in doing so, I had to face my fear with him, and we went to court. And he wasn't in the room, but he was just on a speakerphone, and that was terrifying enough. The magistrate asked me to basically relive every memory that I could possibly think of. It was definitely probably the scariest thing I've ever had to do. I couldn't find my words, I couldn't breathe, and I just, the Holy Spirit just gave me that strength. I definitely felt the Holy Spirit just be like, I don't even know, and started saying as much as I could remember, and then it was done. It came out and it was done, and I felt relief from it. I felt like somebody believed me, and he was sentenced to 91 years in prison. So one day here at the lovely Hope Church, we were in church, the goodness of God came on, and came on like it's the radio. Anyway, we were singing it, and it got All My Life You Have Been So, So Good. And I've sing the song a million times, and all of a sudden it was like, nope. And I just felt this overwhelming feeling, we'll just say. I felt overwhelmed that I was upset with God, that I was unforgiving, I guess, towards God. I was angry at God. I was hurt that I all of a sudden in that moment felt like, but you haven't been good to me all my life. And I'd never thought that. And I remember feeling like this twist inside of me of, what? How could you think that? It's God. You love God, But at the same time, it was present. There was no getting around it. I just walked right out of the sanctuary and started coming down the stairs here, and met with my friend, and she asked me how I was doing, and I said, I'm okay. And she said, you don't look good. I said, I'm not, I just need a minute. And she said, well, let's go down here. So we sat at the table and talked, and I shared with her that I just felt angry all of a sudden. Like, how could I sing that God's been good to me all my life when I went through all of that? Like, where was he? And she was like, why don't we ask him? I just remember getting mad. Like, no, I don't want to ask him. Why would I ask him where he was? I don't want to know that he wasn't there. Why would I ask? And so a lot of tears and snot later, she was like, I understand, but I really think that you should just ask him. She's like, can you think back to when was the first time you felt like he wasn't there for you, that he didn't protect you? And just in that instant, it was like I came right to this memory. I would say I was about 10. And this memory of being in this really dark, damp shed. And my brother, who's in prison, he had me in there, strapped down to this old van bench seat, and it was like I felt like I was right there. I could smell the straw or hay and the mustiness, and I just felt like I was right back in that moment. And it was horrible, kind of like the trial experience, just like and she said, can you ask Jesus where he was? And so I just closed my eyes and asked him where he was. And he was just there. I just saw him in the doorway. The door was closed, but he was there in the doorway, and he was just larger than life. He was like huge, like 14 feet tall. I mean, he was just huge. He was just massive inside there. And there was no light in the shed, but there was light coming from him. And I just saw Jesus standing there with his hands over his face, and he was crying, and I could see the scars, and he was just crying into his hands. And in that moment, it just, I don't know, it just healed something in me. It took time still to get to that place of like, okay, but he healed something in me that was like, he didn't just leave me alone. He didn't just let it happen. And that while it was happening, he hated it, you know? He hated seeing that happen. He hated it for me. So that's taken a lot of just trusting that God is going to protect me. It definitely helped grow my faith. I was surrounded by people that loved the Lord. And so there was Ben. I had known Ben since high school. He's 5 years older than me. It had been about 1.5 years since his divorce had been over and done with. And he asked me to dinner. I didn't audibly hear it, but I heard God tell me that he was going to be my husband. He proposed to me a year after dating, and we were married a few months later. And yeah, so then we wanted to start a family right away, and we could not. We tried every possible way, it seemed. I was not only discouraged, but I had taken God completely out of the equation. I just remember so many days, nights, whenever, just sobbing, just crying, and asking God why he was punishing me, why he didn't want me to have kids, why am I cursed, generational curses, why? It wasn't until I really just trusted God completely, which took a long time to get there, to just trust him that he would be in control. And somewhere in the middle of that, God was already, he was already doing, he's already making it happen, taking care of my desire, my dream, my hope. So we moved here and we fostered some kids, and it was wonderful, but then they would go home, and that was hard. And in that time, I heard God tell me to check my emails. And I was like, no, we've been down this. I'm not doing this. And again, I heard him tell me to check my email. And there was a letter from the county stating that there was a little boy, 18 months, that needed a forever home, and that there were twins, a boy and a girl, 20 months old, that needed a forever home. Before I knew it, there were these 2 beautiful babies in my home just staring at me, and a boy and a girl, what I had prayed for 10 years prior in our nursery. I just remember in that moment, this love wash over me of like all those times I could remember in my head. I could remember laying on the floor crying. I could remember that desperate feeling, but it was so far removed. It was like so far removed. I'm grateful that God put those people in my life when I was young, and he kept putting people in my life, and he put me at a clinic where I was surrounded and saturated by Christians, where everywhere I went, I saw him. I saw a glimpse of him. He put people that were reflecting him back to me, because all that while he was stirring up his love inside of me so that I could grow up and mature in him and be the mom that teaches my children about who Christ is. I feel like the Holy Spirit keeps reminding me of the forgiveness piece. While forgiveness isn't easy for everyone to do, and we may think that they don't deserve our forgiveness, I have genuinely forgiven my dad, my brothers, even the one that's in prison, my mom, for allowing it to happen. And the way he has grown me in that, it just changes everything. It releases strongholds that the devil can have on you. I don't know, there's this absolute peace that comes with it. I don't have to keep taking care of a wound, I can just let it heal and be done. So recently, we, as a family, had been praying about growing our family, fostering again, with the hope to adopt. I don't know, he was just in the mix of it, and we get these beautiful babies, and they're wonderful, and we love them. They come from a situation that is very heartbreaking. And I feel like I went back in time to those places where it was so painful with Bijan and Sophie, of the wondering and the waiting but with Sophie and Bijan, there was a certainty, like God had promised them to me. So I knew. And here it feels like this is meant to be, but there's no certainty. I mean, the only certainty I have to cling to is the goodness of God, right? Like who he is. I have to trust him. And I do trust him. So even though we don't know the outcome, we just trust in him. I have to keep telling myself that he has already written this story, and it's beautiful. And when I finish it, I will not want to change a thing. I will not want him to edit it. I won't want something different.